Look, Sharon, it was 20 to 7. Let's leave it at that, okay?
I still say it was 6:40.
20 to 7.
6:40.
I don't care, Sharon. I am keeping this old alarm clock. And besides, it was a Christmas present from my mom.
I'll stay with my digital. You can't keep up with the times by stopping your clock.
Oh, hi, Sherry. Come on in.
Hi, Sherry.
Hi.
We could use you to settle an argument.
Actually, I came here to show Sharon a couple of things. See when you watch?
Oh, hey, that's really neat. I see, it's a digital clock.
What's so great about a digital?
Ernie Dick and his family have experienced a lot of change in their lives. They moved from Canada to France and from there to Zaire. There they became deeply involved in agricultural development and church ministry. Ernie tells how the changes affected them.
We had expected France to be very much like Canada or the United States because it was a developed country, it was an advanced society. But if anywhere we experienced culture shock, it was in France. The whole attitude in many respects is totally different there than over here. Here we have been working with tractors for a number of years already, and we came out into the central mountain range of France. We realize now, of course, that the fields are small and there are other reasons for this, but here they were still cultivating with milk cows. Here we were in the land of Louis Pasteur, and they weren't even pasteurizing their milk. And other things like power outages and so on. There are a number of things there that really made us realize that we were in another country. When we came to Zaire, we realized that what we had thought was going to be our assignment was not going to be our assignment. This took quite some time to work this out, really for ourselves. We were developing stock to be distributed to the villagers. This was basically cattle, and we had up to 700 head of cattle on the farm when I was there, with also rabbits and chickens and so on. And in this way, we were going to help replace the protein, the meat, especially protein, for the villagers where it had been destroyed during the rebellion. They had had cattle and they had had livestock, some livestock, not too much around, but it had been totally destroyed by the rebellion. More traumatic would have been our return here to Canada. We had lived in a culture or a society for a number of years now where things were hard to come by, and where when we thought we had a big car, we had what is here considered a small car. We came back here and there were these massive cars that we came back to, and various other things. This whole style of living really shook us the first time. Well, the most important aspect, I think, is that we have learned that the Lord really does look after us. Another real benefit is the fact that we have an understanding of a way of life totally different than ours. As I said, the experience in France was sort of a shock to us. We have come to appreciate their way of life, though. We hear a lot of derogatory things, for example, about the way the French drive, about the way the Europeans drive when they are driving in the cities. But if you begin to understand their way of driving, then you can fit into it. And personally, I had quite a bit of difficulty fitting into the driving patterns here. Over in a European driving style, if you need to switch lanes, if there's room between two cars for the car to get in, you switch. You blink and then the car behind you slows down so that you can pull in. While here, if you try to switch lanes, the car will pull up faster and not allow you to get in. I've gone for half a mile trying to switch lanes without being able to do so. So you get to know another mentality, which is very important.
So what else is new besides your new what, Sherry?
Well, I'm doing an assignment in art class. I'd show it to you, but it's not very good.
What do you mean it's not very good?
I'm having trouble with it. It doesn't seem to look right.
Is it the one you were working on last week, the one with the bird flying?
Yeah, I can't get the wings to look right.
Hey, I've got a bird book. Maybe it'll have some pictures that will help.
I'm curious, Sherry. Why did you decide to do a bird?
Birds are my favorite. Besides, it's something I like to do. I like to fly away into another world like a bird.
on my bed, there is trouble in my head. I remember how the paper read. Life is just a game and survival is the aim. It doesn't matter how you get ahead. Cheating is okay if it helps you on the way, but be careful that you don't get caught. Who's to say what's wrong? Where does morality belong when survival is the only law? Still the game goes on. Worked so hard and now I'm growing old. Am I a slave to my genetic code? Have I been running down a dead-end road? If you care to read a unique philosophy where you're caught by your heredity, you will find that love is the selfish product of a person's drive to pass along his genes. God is just a crutch for the paranoid and such, those who can't accept the way they are. If that's really true, then I'm nothing but a fool, 'cause you know I'm one who's leaning hard. Still the game goes on. Worked so hard and now I'm growing old. Am I a slave to my genetic code? Have I been running down a dead-end road? God is just a crutch for the paranoid and such, those who can't accept the way they are. If that's really true, then I'm nothing but a fool, 'cause you know I'm one who's leaning hard.
Why would you like to fly away like a bird?
To get away from home.
You don't like it at home?
Everything's changed so much lately.
Like?
Dad's out of work and it's been that way for 2 months now.
But that means you get to see him a lot more.
I see him a lot more, but that's no fun. Mum says he's worrying and to stay out of his way. Besides, there's no money.
I can see where that might change things.
We never get to go anywhere. I can't get new clothes or do anything.
But you look well dressed to me.
Huh? Nobody's wearing this stuff anymore. Besides, I don't think I was supposed to hear it last night. Mum's going to have another baby.
Ah, yes, the old farm truck. Time is starting to tell on him. He's not what he used to be. He's been changing over the years, not suddenly, just slowly and steadily. Tires getting more bald all the time. Cracks in the windshield. And he doesn't have the finish that he had when he rumbled into the yard that first day. When you compare him with the snazzy new models, you kind of feel sorry for him. And you sort of get a lump in your throat when you see where he's headed. But he's not ready for that yet. He's still got a job to do. And even though he's getting old, he can still do it well. The engine inside is still ticking away, and there's a good chance it'll keep going if they feed it clean fuel and change the oil when it gets dirty. His voice might be getting a little thin, but still strong enough to sound a warning when necessary. The signals still flash so he can let others know in his own quiet way where he's headed. And if he has to go in the dark, the lights are still bright enough to light up the road ahead. The brakes might be squeaky, but he can stop when he has to. And the mirror, well, it's hanging in there so he can see what's coming up from behind. What he really needs, though, is someone at the wheel. Someone who knows where to go and how to get there. Someone who'll keep him on the right road. there's work to do. Time to carry another load down the dusty field. Good old fella.
You'd like that, wouldn't you? A baby brother or sister to play with?
Yeah, but that won't be putting anything but diapers if Dad doesn't get a new job by then. It's just another thing for everyone to worry about.
What are you thinking about, Sherry?
Next week I have to change schools. We have to move to an older house that we can afford. That's why I want to fly away like a bird. I hate it. The whole thing's so stupid.
Sometimes we find it hard to face major changes in our lives, but it is usually possible to do at least some adapting. Even though people and insects are quite different from each other, these small neighbors of ours may give us something to consider. A case in point is the Panthea cutworm moth, which lives in industrial areas of Ontario and Quebec. As its environment has changed, it has changed. Because of this, it has been better protected. This is how a biologist describes it.
Over the last several decades, as industrialization has occurred in these areas of Canada, this species of moth has gradually changed its coloration from light-colored to dark-colored. As a result, the dark-colored moth has been able to match much more closely the color of the bark in these areas which have been darkened because of pollution and other industrial waste products that have been emitted into the environment in these areas. These moths are not readily seen by their predators and enemies as they closely match the background on which they rest. Consequently, these moths have been able to survive and reproduce much better than the light-colored moths which predominated some time ago.
Another example of change is the cockroach. This insect has survived in this world for a very long time, often as a pest to mankind. For the last several decades, man has been using all kinds of methods to control this insect, including chemical control.
At first successful, these chemical controls are now in many areas of dubious value because the cockroach has been able to develop a tolerance to these chemicals. What has happened is a few specimens or a few individuals in the population were a little more tolerant to these pesticides than others, and the ones that were not tolerant were killed by the pesticides, leaving only the few that showed some tolerance to them. As a result, only the specimens that were tolerant have been able to reproduce, and now the populations of cockroaches are largely made up of specimens which are tolerant.
Another mechanism that the cockroach has to help it survive is its keen sense of detecting the presence of another individual or a potential enemy.
It has structures on it called circi, which are able to detect even the finest movement of air in the space, and the cockroach reacts to this tiny whiff of air by scurrying in a direction opposite to which the air movement originated.
Cockroaches are able to live on a wide diversity of food and so are quite at home in people's homes.
They're capable of feeding on anything from wallpaper to breadcrumbs to glue. They're well suited to human habitation. They are able to squeeze themselves into the tiniest spaces and conceal themselves so that they're virtually inaccessible and hard to find.
Insects have many creative ways of adapting to new situations. People usually do too. especially if they work at it and depend on the help of their Creator.
You know, Sherry, I remember when I moved once. I was right about your age. I had to leave my old neighborhood and all my good friends and the school I'd been attending, and I had to move to a brand new area where I didn't know anyone. You're right. I heard a lot. I just hated new situations. I found it really hard to make new friends. But when I did, they really helped.
Will I find nice friends that won't tease?
I can remember trying really hard not to do dumb things that would bug them, like being a show-off. And one thing that really helps is just being friendly.
Mom and Dad never trust the friends I bring home. They're always worried about me getting into trouble.
I know it's going to be hard, Sherry. You'll need to be understanding. Your whole family's under a lot of pressure now.
And try to talk things through as much as possible. Hey, listen, we could drive by and visit you and your mom and dad sometime.
I think they'd like that.
It might seem hard at first, really hard, but now when I look back on it, I can see that all those changes were good for me. New opportunities. There's a lot of good things I'd have missed if we hadn't moved.
Daniel, a teenager, living quietly with his family, going to school, doing his homework faithfully, loving life, loving his homeland. Suddenly, a blitz from the north. The Babylonians are here. They're taking over the country, and they're not very kind. They think they can use the best-looking teenagers back home in Babylon as slaves. Daniel, with some of his friends, is whisked away. No choice in the matter. Off to a new country, miles and miles away. And there, new teachers, a new language, new food, new customs, new bosses, and a new religion with a lot of pressure to reject what his father and mother taught him at home. But he does well. He knows God, and God helps him. No bitterness, no rebellion, but he does live up to his convictions. Like one day they throw him into a den of lions because he prays to God 3 times a day. God protects him. When the leaders of the country need a word of wisdom, they ask him. He gives it. He knows God. They don't. And they don't always like what he says, but the truth has a way of proving itself. He's a good person to have around in Babylon. He never does get to live back in his homeland again, but he becomes a very special person to people around him where he lives. Maybe he would have missed doing all that, becoming the person he became, if the Babylonians had never swooped down from the north and whisked him away from his homeland.
Another neat thing is that you never need to be completely alone. I can see you taking your bike and going for a ride down a street in your new neighborhood, looking at different houses, exploring, thinking about the people you left behind, missing their friendships, maybe even feeling kind of lonely, wishing you had someone to talk to. And you'll be able to, right there. You can talk to God anytime. Tell him exactly how you feel about your need for friends and your dad being out of work and about the new baby and everything.
Well, God's kind of like a stranger to me, too.
He doesn't want to be. Ask him to be your friend. He loves you. He'd like you to trust him just like a friend. Sometimes God changes our circumstances when we pray. And sometimes God changes us so that we can handle our circumstances. But he does hear us. That's one friendship you'll never have to leave behind.
When when we watch TV, when we see no end to the sins of men, to the war and greed. We can shake our heads, we can live in fear, or we can begin to change man's inhumanity. Oh, hope isn't gone where people care for people. Hope isn't gone where Christ rules every heart. When you never win, when you're striking out, when you don't belong, everything goes wrong and you're deep in doubt, you can just give up, you can drop right out. But there's loving friends help you try again, and that's why we shout. Oh, hope isn't gone where people care for people. Hope isn't gone where Christ rules every heart. We can lift our heads, we can shake the fear, for we trust God's word that Christ the Lord's returning here. Join to spread the news, have the faith to see Jesus coming through as he builds a new humanity. Oh, hope isn't gone where people care for people. Hope isn't gone where Christ rules every heart. Hope isn't gone where people care for people. Hope isn't gone where Christ rules every heart. Where Christ rules every heart.
Here on The Third Story, we've been showing you a slice of real life. We hope that the program has been meaningful to you. A free Third Story magazine is available. It contains some of the items from the shows, articles about people in real-life situations, songs, plus additional features, something for the whole family. And it's free, with no obligation. You can have it simply by writing to The Third Story, Box 2, Station F, Winnipeg, Manitoba. That's The Third Story, Box 2, Station F, Winnipeg, Manitoba. We'll be waiting to hear from you.